So, literally, guys, the last solo episode, which was my first solo episode I did, we did 100 and like almost 40,000 views. And you guys blew my mind. It definitely made me feel as though there was a calling in that space to connect with people outside of just the interviews, for sure. And just speak my truth a little bit more. I feel as though a lot of people gave me feedback. Like that's the energy we want from Kay. Like we want to see her giving the raw, the real, and the journey. And I feel like it definitely left me inspired. It left me emotional. There's so many emotions I can pull on for sure when I think about where we were in that space of my life. I was really like getting to know God on a deeper level. He was revealing so many things to me. And I just want to continue to share in that space outside of just the interviews about success and things of that nature. So today I really wanted to dive into walking in your purpose because that's something I feel like I finally stepped into. This space you all see me in took so much work and so many different variations of myself and mindsets and changes to really become this person that I'm becoming. And it's interesting because the video that you all love so much when I was sitting in the same spot was such a transitional space for me, and I was so lost in that space. So to be able to pour into so many other people at that specific time was definitely eye-opening for me. And it was just like, regardless of where you feel like you're at, there's always somebody else who can learn from the journey that you're on. So let's get into it. I really want to talk about walking in your purpose. And I broke it up into like 5 things that I feel like God had revealed to me as I went on this journey to like really figure out what my purpose was, even when He revealed it to me, the space I was in and what it took for me to actually mentally like tap in with God and the relationship I had to have with Him before He actually revealed to me what my purpose was. And one thing I can go back to that I remember so vividly is I had been asking God for so long, what is my purpose? Like what I'm supposed to be doing in life. Like I really didn't have it figured out as much as my life was figured out. I was making great money. I had a great job, but something inside was still kind of just like, yo, like I don't got this figured out. And there's something deeper. There's something more I want. It's actually really funny because I've had visions of myself from the time I was a child speaking on like talk shows, like specifically, like I've always had this like reoccurring vision of me speaking on a talk show. So to even be living in this moment right now where God has given me the opportunity to curate a space where I'm speaking, impacting people and doing something that I've seen myself doing before I could even conceptualize is kind of crazy, but it also ties into like a few of the things that we're going to dive into. So one, I just want to take you guys back to the moment before I even knew what my purpose was. I knew I was driven. I knew I was motivated. I knew I could make a lot of money and do certain things. But one thing that I really would always question and ask myself was, what am I working towards? Like, I felt like I was working, but I didn't have anything I was specifically working towards, if you get what I'm saying. And I can just think back on my biggest like business ventures or ways that I was making money and like capitalizing off of things. Like I had this sales drive and this passion, but I started a hookah company and I went into trucking and took a crazy loss that you all know about. And I wanted to sell like, you know, smoke trinkets in a smoke shop. And I think so vividly now on like the way God has me moving, impacting my community, being a light to so many other people, and none of those things aligned with that. Was I good at it? Did I have a business strategy and a plan and it was able to achieve those things? 100%. But to say that I felt fulfilled in my purpose, I definitely was still searching for that constantly. And another thing that I would remember before I figured out my purpose was I was always feeling lost and burnt out. Even though I had the fulfillment financially of like feeling like I'm successful, I was still lost. Like I was just kind of like, well, what am I going to be? Who am I going to be like in the end of it all? You know what I mean? And I feel like when you don't identify or God hasn't revealed your purpose, you're in this space where you're like, what is the end goal? Whereas I feel like when you really tap into understanding and walking in your purpose, you're constantly driven on a day-to-day to do all things that revolve around fulfilling and stepping into that purpose, where your actions won't be questions as much. You won't have to wake up and say, what direction should I go in? When you understand your purpose, the opportunities that are coming to you, you'll naturally start to gravitate to the ones that fulfill the purpose that you have for yourself. So, or God has for you. So, it was kind of cliche at that moment, because I felt like the saying, doing what you love, I feel like I didn't even know what I loved at that point. Like, I just thought I loved making money. I thought I loved being in sales. And now I realize I love helping people. I love having an impact on my community. I love the space I'm stepping into. But what's crazy is I've always been that person. Naturally, before I was even aware, like, okay, this is your purpose. How do you tap into that? And how do you take that full on? If anybody needed advice from me, I'd be the friend that was like, I'm gonna help you find the right person. I'm gonna help you find the right resource. Naturally, that was who I was. And I was overlooking the fact that that's who you are. Like, that's your purpose. Your purpose is to help people, to serve, to be a resource, and to impact your community. You know what I mean? And my idea of success was so different. I feel like before I connected with God and really tapped into Him revealing my purpose and how I could step into that, it was so financially tied, like my success. And now my success is so much more, who am I attached to, and how does me being attached to that individual impact their lives? How does what I show up and do on a day-to-day basis impact others? And I think that was such a major shift for me that occurred once I allowed God, you know the saying when they like, oh yeah, let go and let God. Once I really let go and I let God have His way with my life, it was really beautiful to see, like, what you got planned, baby girl, you don't even got a vision. You have glimpses, but you don't have a vision for what I'm actually about to do within you and do to anyone who is attached to you. So I think that was just something that really changed. My success was no longer defined by money. And a major thing is, I feel like whatever your purpose is not going to be to fulfill yourself, right? Like, we all can wake up every day and say, I'm just fulfilling myself. Like, this is so self-fulfilling. But I feel like when you think of a purpose, it's attached to impacting other people in some capacity. Like, you don't just wake up every day and say, I'm just going to keep all this knowledge to myself. I'm going to keep this wisdom to myself. Oh, I made this money and I did it for myself. You impact your family, you impact your friends. So a major thing that I realized about starting to walk in my purpose was that it wasn't about me. I had to become selfless. I had to start to understand that there was a bigger picture than me. Whereas before, I was so focused on myself, so internally inclined to want to do everything for myself. And although I gave to other people, my purpose wasn't necessarily attached, or my motives weren't necessarily attached to being able to be a servant to others or to impact them. So I think that's what I think about before. And I think the journey to get to where I'm at today was super interesting, because as we know, in my last video, I definitely talked about the journey of what it took for me to really build that relationship with God in that season I was in. But that season, as much as I'm saying I wanted to move away from like fulfilling myself, it taught me about myself, which was what helped me to impact other people. Because if you don't know yourself, if you don't know your strengths, if you don't know your weaknesses, you might respond a certain way, you might react a certain way, because you're not comfortable understanding your triggers, your childhood, the trauma that you've lived through, right? So I feel like there was this deep space God brought me into where it was like, baby girl, we got to work on a lot, because I'm going to have you helping so many other people that I need you to be in a space where you're able to do that. You're comfortable with yourself to do that. You've grown and matured enough in a space to be able to do that. And yeah, I feel like that time really allowed me to really tap into what my gifts were, what my real skill set was. It was not, I am an individual at this company who makes money. Like, that's not my purpose in life. You know, my purpose in life is, how do I utilize those skills to impact so many other people, or to change their lives, or to intercede on the behalf of them being able to have something happen within their life. And my biggest thing is that I do think that self-reflection allows us access to really assess our failures. I feel like within our failures, or what I consider lessons now, I don't really consider them failures. That's where so much groundwork is done to be able to understand the lessons of your life. And if you don't take the time to formally like dive in and assess those moments, I feel like you miss the point of them. So I think everything works for our good, but it's on us to sit back and really assess, like, what is this lesson that I'm supposed to learn? And if you are in a space where you keep on repeating the same processes, I'll never forget, there was a point, I think the super urge to change and transition into the woman I'm becoming today came from me constantly feeling like I was living in like a loop. Like, you know, when you watch a movie and you wake up and it's like, I keep getting the same result no matter what route I try, no matter what I try. And I was like, okay, something has to give. What are you missing? Or what are you not taking from the revolving door that you're going through? And I feel like one of the biggest lessons that we can learn is being still in the moment of, what do we need to self-assess? And what type of self-reflection is necessary for us to move forward? Because if we don't do that, we get caught in a process, in a cycle where we're just constantly just doing the same thing over and over again. And I feel like it is insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So that was something I did. And just asking God for the revelation, asking him to really lead me and show me, what is my purpose, right? Like, I wasn't praying like that before. I just kept saying, what is my purpose? I wasn't like, God, reveal me, build me, help me become whoever it is that you need me to be for this specific purpose. I think that the closer I walked with God and became in that journey, it was definitely revealed to me that my prayers had to become more specific on becoming built into the person that could be equipped for what I was asking for. So that's definitely something that I will say. And I think one of the biggest changes for me was leaning into really truly being myself. I've always considered myself a very confident person. I've always considered myself a leader. Like, I've never really been one to just be in the back front, just be like, oh, I'm gonna follow what other people do. But what I can say is it took me time to organically be true with what that image looked like and who I really was as a person. And I think that don't hide the best parts of yourself. I feel like I was in so many environments that were contradicting who I really knew I was at heart. And I adapted to those environments rather than force myself to stand out. And the one thing I would say is, the moment I made the decision to stand out and uniquely be myself and understand, like, what you possess and what your gifts are unique to you. That's what's going to make your journey and your purpose come to life, is staying true to who you really are. And a lot of times we say, oh, I'm being true to me and I'm this and I'm that. But when you really assess, like, how are you adapting to the environments you're in versus standing out and truly standing on who you are? That's a major thing that I feel like we all should just take into consideration. Because I know I moved to Atlanta, for example, and there were just so many environments I was put in that made me feel like materialistic, like just being in a space where I felt like I had to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way. And the moment I just was like, you know, like, I don't really agree with all that. That's not really my vibe. Like, and I stepped into who I am as a person and my vibe. I feel like things started to skyrocket for me because people were like, we've never seen that vibe. We've never caught that vibe. Nobody's ever done this before. And that's where your space is. That's your lane and your path. And I think it took me so long to find that balance and transition within myself that I would really say that the acceleration comes from really finding your lane and staying true to who you really are. That lane is wide open for you, girl. Nobody, or boy, nobody's lane is curated like your lane. So the more you tap into trying to be like everybody else, I feel like you're missing out on the lane that's like wide open for you to take clear, to just run through it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just feel like discovering my purpose really led me to helping so many other people As you guys know, I started the tech level. Literally, I announced that. So that's what I'm saying. It's just so crazy to be in this space 6 months later. Because last time I was here, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm on the verge of doing this. And now that I've like stepped into it, the impact that I've had is insane. And even the quickness with what God did in my life on what he was calling me into, I couldn't understand in that moment, but now that it's manifested, I'm just like, wow, like I have no idea where I'm even going. Like, but I trust it and I'm cool with it. And as long as I keep getting the results of like helping people in their lives, that's fulfilling to me. And yeah, I think that I would say that don't ignore your soul's desires, right? Like it says in the Bible, you know, God will give you the desires of your heart. And I don't think he's saying like, oh, go be evil and he's going to give you, you know, like some evil desire you have. But I think if you do genuinely have pure intentions and keep him first, those things that burn your soul, those things that you're like, I've always wanted to do this. Like, that is what I see myself doing. This is the person I've always envisioned in my head. Like, I know for me, this shortcut I've had, I've always envisioned that person. And it's not like a thing where it's just like, oh, I just wanted that shortcut. It was just the whole aura. It was the person. It was the being. Everything that I am today, I've always envisioned myself stepping into that. I just didn't know how I was going to get here. And I think that those are the things, like those dreams, those passions that you have, lean into them so much. It's a reason it's put on your spirit and your heart. And I feel like God don't place nothing on our hearts that he don't want you to have. I feel like it just takes, are you going to actually put in the work to bring those things to life and walk in his vision of whatever that is for you? And that comes with letting go of certain things, right? Like it comes with understanding at times, hey, I might have to give this up. I might have to sacrifice this for the greater good of who I'm becoming. And yeah, do a skills assessment. Figure out what you're really, really good at. I think a lot of times we overlook the basics. And when I say that, like, I've been running my mouth my whole life. Like, I have been running my mouth my whole life. Like, I wish you guys understood the extent to how I run my mouth. So to sit in this moment and just even capture this and even be able to put messages like this out to the world is absolutely mind-blowing to me, because it's like, you had this, where were you utilizing it? How were you utilizing it? And you had this gift all along. So yeah, so I think my final like just statement that I really want to hit on is like understanding there are things that we have to give up to become who we want to become and walk in that purpose. And I think we have to get real with ourselves sometimes and ask ourselves, what are we willing to give up? You know, are you willing to give up your limiting beliefs? Are you willing to give up your fear, your doubt, everything that's ever clouded your mind or your judgment on who you want to become or who you've ever dreamed of being? Something got to go. And I feel like the moment you let those things go, you give room to so much more to come in and to grow and to just become who you are as a person. And y'all know that I'm going to say discipline. Y'all know that's my pillar. I'm very disciplined. I'm very hard on myself, but I feel like the discipline is what really accelerates me. It allows me to say, I'm willing to walk away from this. I'm willing to step into this. And I'm very like selfless with my boundaries. Like, you know, if this is for my greater good, I really don't care who's in the way or what's going on. I need to prioritize how I can walk in my will and walk in my purpose. So, you know, my final statement that I wrote on my little cue card is love all the things the world tries to drain your thinking or conform your thinking about. That is where the magic lies, right? Everything that you've been told you can't be, every barrier that has been put in front of you, the moment you believe that this world is just putting those things in front of you and you can not conform to those beliefs is where the magic lies. So I hope that this video has been helpful in helping you walk in your purpose, find more truth within yourself, know that your identity is who you are, you're blessed, and there's a purpose for whatever it is that you're called to do in this life.